1,200 years in the distant future, a wealthy man by the name of Taylorre Shepherd embarks on a grand project in order to pay respects and leave a legacy far greater than his children. Taylor is a member of the race Homo Deus, a descendant of humanity. Taylorre has always been a man of sentimentality and tradition. While some of his race see themselves as better than their parent race, the sapiens. He looks at their kind not with a look of indifference and superiority, but with gratitude and admiration. For the sapiens are not just his ancestors, but also his equals. Many of his friends are sapiens hell, even his wife is. While he is far stronger and smarter than many of them, he is keenly aware that he has come from them and that he is no better than they are. As weak as many of his kind see their vestigial brother, many forgot that if it were not for the Spions, the Deus would never have been born. Taylor is also decently known throughout the solar system. He had been the director of many grand projects, including some overly flamboyant Dyson spheres in far-off colonies, which even he, as pompous as he is, admitted were rather ridiculous. Taylorre is also vaguely despised like the famous celebrities. Of old, cough, cough, Elon Musk, cough, cough, Mr. Beast, which causes him, as smart as he is, to overcompensate and make even more ridiculous and elaborate projects in a desperate bid for attention and admiration. The urge for attention and popularity, a trait passed down from the sapiens, but I digress. For today, Taylorre has a project far greater than anything he has done and ever will do. One day, Taylorre found himself admiring the view from his balcony, pondering about legacy and greatness, specifically his legacy and his greatness. Because Taylorre is, of course, amazing. I mean, how could he not be? Taylorre is one of the very first quadrillionaires. No one's done that yet, eh? Sapien nor Deus. Carrying on this line of thought, he eventually thought of his name. Taylorre, Ambara, Shepherd, he mused. What a name, what a title. Somewhere in his dense, and no, I do not mean neurally, brain, he recalled that the name Taylorre actually originated from a funny new English name, Taylor. It lacked the sophistication and the subtlety of having two R's and an E, but it was the ancestor of his name nonetheless. Then he moved on to Abara, the surname his wife gave him, hinting to her African ancestry. And then finally, his surname, Shepherd. Its meaning was obvious. His sapien ancestors must have been shepherds, probably of sheep, he thought. The humbleness of such an idea pleased him, such simple, normal beginnings. And now this, he made a big show of stomping over to the mirror to admire himself. 10.2 feet tall and 3.6 kilograms of ironclad skeleton and pure muscle. Oh, to be a deus. He and his kind dwarfed the humans of old by 2 times. Even sapiens now, which averaged at 6.12, were dwarfed by his frame. If he were thrown into primeval, he would give even the saber-tooths and cave bears a run for their money. It would be more like fighting bobcats and dogs to him. The curious thoughts finally winning against him, he meandered around, searching for his tiny wife. He asked her if she would be up for an ancestry test, as he wanted to know about their shared family history. His wife Delilah happily agreed. It would be a fun and informative experience. Plus, she couldn't like she, too, was curious what her ancestors were doing hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. That night, using a medical bot, they both went through a vast database discovering those who came before them. Apparently, one of Delilah's ancestors had been a great scientist in the mid-2100s, a time of innovation as the world calmed down from the chaos of industrialization and modernization. And even further back in the ancient 1940s, one of her great-grandfathers had been a soldier in the Second World War. Even further back in the 1970s is a picture of many smiling villagers, in the middle being a young girl smiling, cuddling a goat. Seems we were shepherding goats too, eh? Delilah says as she looks up at her husband. Yeah, I didn't know goats were so prevalent in our history. Yeah, in fact. Did you know goats were some of the earliest domesticated animals? No, I did not act Ollie. Yeah, they were incredibly influential on mankind's development, just as important as dogs or cattle, maybe even more so. Eventually, they moved on to Taylor's ancestry. His fifth great-grandfather was a YouTube streamer by the name of XX Locked in Legends XX. He watched in amusement as his teenage grandfather ranted about there being too many bots in this game, and the conspiracy theories he went on about cancer cures being gate-kept for money. Funnily enough, he was partly right about that one. There was a massive scandal in the 2160s as companies had discovered highly effective treatments for all types of cancer but had kept it from the general public, with only the rich being able to afford treatment. Didn't know I had a little raving Socrates for a grandfather. Taylorre mentioned. His wife giggled. You know, he looks just as crazy as you. I don't deny that. Taylorre chuckled. But finally, Taylorre found the piece history he was looking for. His ancestor Toby, shepherd, birth 1933 to 2020. Next to the date was a picture of his grandfather with a quote. My mama always loved goats, and so did her mama and her mama so on. It's in our blood, our own way of life. And I wouldn't change it for the world. Below was a picture of his grandfather's son holding a goat kid, presumably and likely to be Taylor's other grandfather. Skimming over more of the archives, the name Shepherds dates back all the way to the primeval 1200s touched, and with a grand idea, Taylorre immediately set to work on a world that would leave his ancestors proud, a legacy that would go on well after him and his children's deaths, for both him and his wife, hiring a few scientists, biologists, geography experts, and terraformers. He devised a plan for the terraforming of a distant planet, a planet that he would seed with life, with goats. The biologists and scientists would help add further keystone species so that the goats could survive there, and the geologists and terraforming experts would help draw plans and create ideal conditions and biomes for the goats to live in. Making the people involved sign a letter of secrecy, all signed with no hesitation, especially considering each person would be paid handsomely, in hundreds of millions of dollars, though many become slightly emotionally invested and softened up upon hearing about the more personal reasons for this project, and so they set to work. Using state-of-the-art ships that the public would not have access to for centuries yet, they traveled deep into the spiral arm of the galaxy. Finding a suitable solar system with conditions like home, they quickly set to work. A barren, rocky planet, similar in size to Earth with a moon to match. Terraform machines were set up with the cargo of life neatly tucked and frozen within. All of the animals had been scooped up from Earth, the goats being the only ones of which were not plucked from the wild and instead bought from farms. By the time the machines had set to work, the crew had complete their mission and could now only hope that their money and time was well spent. To actually observe the terraforming of the planet would take hundreds of years, if not millennia. Even the terraforming of Mars took at least 342 years before. It was even vaguely habitable to life. Even Homo Deus, with their great lifespans, rarely saw past their 250s. Taylorre could only hope. But hope he did, and just in case any travelers or possible alien life were to come here, he had left a little surprise on the moon. A reference to one of his favorite books, 2001: A Space Odyssey. But instead of being a featureless monolith, it had an inscribings and mechanisms within. If someone were to access it, they would see a small golden disc, and within two pictures, one of a farmer and his goat, and his son clutching a small kid to his chest. And a sentence reading. As I was considering, behold, a male goat came from the west across the face of the whole earth, without touching the ground, and the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. Daniel 8:5.